All right, Lone Star Gunners, welcome to the program. This is Lone Star Gun Talk, and I am your host, as always, Derek Wills. This is going to be a fantastic show. I can feel it in my bones, in my very core. I can feel it. And last week, if you haven't heard last week's episode, I would highly encourage you to go back and listen to it. It was a gun control discussion with one of our fellow Lone Star Gunners. He follows our Facebook page. And his name is Leighton, and he is kind of a moderate whenever it comes to gun control. And we had a fantastic discussion on it. We delved down as deeply as we could go, and in the end, I think we got his wheels turning a little bit, and that's really my goal. Not necessarily to change minds, but to get people thinking about what it is that they're saying, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. Today, we have somebody on the line who is the commanding officer of a local militia here in Texas, and we are going to talk about the Second Amendment and gun control as it relates to what a lot of the left likes to talk about, the well-regulated militia part of the Second Amendment. But first, I want to talk real quick about our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by No Surrender Holsters. If you are listening to my voice, chances are that you love your firearms, and anybody who loves their firearms also loves anything that complements their firearms. Nothing complements a handgun or even a knife better than a custom Kydex holster or sheath, and No Surrender Holsters can make that happen for you. If you want a two-tone, if you want something to look like carbon fiber, if you want the Texas flag, if you want zombie green on black that says Moan Labe, AJ at No Surrender Holsters can make it happen. If you reach out to him on his Facebook page, just search for No Surrender Holsters and take a look at some of the work that they've done. And whenever you place your order, if you tell him that you heard it on Lone Star Gun Talk, he will give you free shipping. And that is a heck of a deal. And I certainly hope that you let him know that we sent you. And I hope you enjoy your amazing No Surrender holster. Alrighty, back to the topic of the day. We have with us Tim, who is the commanding officer of a local militia here in Texas. Now, he's not representing them. He's speaking on behalf of himself here, but he is here to talk about gun control and how it relates to militias in general and anything like that. And Tim, welcome to Lone Star Gun Talk, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved in a militia, and how you feel about gun control.
Sure. Locally, I was looking for a group that shared my interests. Those interests being freedom, protection of rights, a family-friendly environment. Just people that we could get together with and go exercise our rights without any abatement or infringement. And I started quite a few years ago. I did the local searches on the web, on the internet, on Facebook, the dime store ads, whatever it was. And I tried to get in touch with a couple groups. Turned out to be some dead ends. Then by chance, I got in touch with the militia I'm currently commanding. They were happy to take me in. Went through the vetting process, went through the patch-in process, and then became a member. I had a particular set of skills that was beneficial to the militia, so I advanced quickly. As with all groups, there was a little bit of a shakeup, and a position opened up, and now I'm the commander of that unit.
Now, when people think, especially the gun control advocates out there, when they hear somebody is part of a militia, they think of instances like Ruby Ridge. They think of a bunch of gun-toting rednecks who want nothing better to do than to try and figure out their way to overthrow the government and all sorts of outlandish things. And there are also people out there that might not be gun control advocates but don't really understand what it is to be part of a militia and what the militia actually does. So what would you say to people like that who had questions about what is the point of a militia?
I see. Yeah. Well, the word militia does have some stigma attached to it. Um, During the Revolutionary War, it was a badge of honor. 3% of the populace was in the militia. If I understand correctly, there was probably more militia civilian members fighting at that time than there were regular army members. Uh, Somewhere along the line, incidents like Ruby Ridge and all those other instances that you described, um, through some ignorance, I'm going to be honest, tainted the word militia, and then other people started using the word militia to apply to some groups that weren't militia, racist groups, hate groups, stuff like that, and it affected the perception of a militia. But what a militia is, truly is just a group of everyday Joes, people in society, in part of the citizenry that are just regular guys that believe in freedom and want to defend their particular, well, let me say that again, defend or help their particular area if need be. Um, our group is a diverse group. We're not racist, certainly, because we've got so many different types of members, and honestly, we don't care. It's just what it's made up of. Whoever happens to live here is the people that make it up. Also, a lot of people don't understand that, quite frankly, they're already in a militia. They are part of the militia. If you're an American citizen, if you're able-bodied, you don't have to have a firearm, I mean, to support the militia, but you're a militia member. You're just not part of a particular group that is proud to put that patch on their shoulders and say that they are. If anyone asked me to describe a militia member, I would ask, well, tell you what, you describe yourself, and then that's what a militia member is.
So you're not a bunch of extremist anarchists who want to overthrow the United States.
Oh, no, far from it. You see, a militia actually does support the government. We support the Constitution. Uh, the Second Amendment that defines what we are is part of the government literature, I guess. I don't know exactly what to call it, but we don't have a problem with our local law enforcement. We don't have a problem with our state government. We don't have a problem with the United States government. We're not anarchists at all. We Now we understand that there is a point to which our government may become tyrannical. See, now when that happens, then I guess you could say we would be anti-government, but it's more we're anti-tyranny, anti-oppression. Um, we do, and that's not just on the fighting side. We also militia is another group that helps during Hurricane Harvey. Some of our members went down to the coastal area to help out, and whatever group was already there, whether it be the Alamo Guard, Texas military, or the Red Cross, or just again what do we got, the Cajun Navy. We helped out, and we helped out as best we can. We're not there to fight the government. We're there to work with the government, but with the understanding that if it becomes tyrannical, which we seem to be heading towards in some areas, we will fight that tyranny.
Right on. So I guess what probably the biggest stigma is about it is we think that, well, I say we in a general sense, is that
Hmm.
we're going to be training and constantly training to do sweep and clear drills. We're practicing our CQB. We want access to M2s and M240s and M203s and tanks and F-16s and all of this because we just don't trust anything that's happening in government. And that's not what I'm hearing from you. And to be honest, I at one point was part of a local militia whenever I was living down in Houston. And yeah, we did do training. We had events on helping people learn weapons employment, but at no point did we seek to, try and plan missions to overthrow the local, state, or federal governments. And so I hope, at least in part, that that our discussion here will help relieve some of that stigma, and let people know that militias aren't something to be feared, or think that they're a bunch of tinfoil hat wearing rednecks. Do y'all does your particular militia do training events and things like that?
Yes, we do. We do that weekend warrior run around in the woods and camouflage thing. We try to do that at least once a month, but that's not everything. That's um, a small part of what we do. What we try to do is not be a prepared combat unit. We try to be prepared for whatever may come up. So if uh, we prepare in first aid, if somebody's injured, we would help. We prepare in self defense. If someone's in trouble, we would help. Uh, we do prepare in combat because that is a situation that could happen. We hope not, but it could. Uh, we also do a lot of other things that is not training per se, but camaraderie, teamwork, um, and we also do family events too.
What sorts of family events?
Well, once a year, we try to have a family event where we just get together. That we usually would do our grunt training, sloshing around in the mud. But we'll pick a month where it's nice and sunny, and we'll actually just have a day at the beach, at a lake or something like that, grilling, enjoying ourselves, and just getting everybody together just to have a nice time.
That sounds like a great time. I really don't understand why people are so, uh, pardon the pun, but up in arms about militias. Let's go to something a little bit political. And what are your thoughts on the whole Clive and Bundy situation that's happened over the past few years?
Okay, that is an interesting issue because it's hard to show fellowship for your fellow comrades and still be active in your area. Um, on our Facebook page and internets and emails and stuff like that, we pick any event that happens anywhere, and they will constantly ask us, "So, what are you going to do about it?" And we don't try to be rude, but we as a unit we have to say, "Well, where in Texas did that happen?" And well, it didn't happen in Texas. Well, there we go. There's a militia in that area that will be the one to help them. We are going to be here where we are in our county, and we're going to keep an eye on our stuff to make sure that doesn't happen here. Um, I'm real. I'm a real strong believer that each militia that's out there is in control of their individual area. That's where they need to be. Now we did send some guys of ours volunteered to go out to the coast for Harvey. That happened in Texas. That was in our area, our state. So they went out to help with that, and some of us stayed here to keep an eye on the home front. That's what we do. I sympathize with their situation. I'll study their situation on a personal level. I have my own opinion on it, but as a unit, it's a little too far out of our jurisdiction. Uh,
Fair
we
enough.
uh, we just we would love to help. I mean, if we had the budget, we would go everywhere we could, but we can't. We have to take care of what's our local area, and we expect other areas to take care of themselves. If they need assistance, they can call on us. We'll do networking. We're more than happy to cross train with other units elsewhere. But understand that a militia is a local unit that takes care of its local area.
That is something that I wish more people would understand, because the stigma that's attached there says, um, militias are trying to, militia from one area is trying to do something in another area. And really, it's kind of like your local, it's just your, community based. And that's the way it should be. Nobody knows and understands the needs of the community more than those living in the community. And I don't think anybody will argue that. And the reason that the militia is there is to help with those issues that can't be dealt with by other means or that might need additional bodies. And, I wish more people would understand that. Is that pretty much how you feel about the situation?
Yes, I whenever I talk to new recruits, I often tell them, "Hey, here's a couple of things that are solid with us. One is we're not a racist group. We don't have any issues with anybody's creed, color, whatever. We're not a political group. We don't support one person over the other. We are there for the people, the citizens of X area. That's who we're there for. We're not. Um, each member has his own opinions and will support that individual if they want or detract from a politician, but that's on their own. But the militia, if something happens with the citizenry, the people, we the people, that's who we're there to help. That's our primary. So there are a lot of militias that full force support an individual politically or have something to say against this particular law or whatever, and that's their right. But first and foremost, they're there to help the people.
So you said you're not political, but there are certainly political issues that have a direct impact on your ability to operate.
Yes,
And
that is an occupational hazard. There's not much we can do about it. Like I said, we do try and stay away from it, but there are situations that directly affect us. Yes,
I
one
would
of
say
them being gun control.
I
Yeah.
was just about to say that very thing. So let's talk about gun control. What are your thoughts on it, as far as what's already enacted and what's being proposed and all of that fun stuff?
Okay. Well, we'll try a couple of hot spots there. Um, what I am trying to do is to approach this from a militia member point of view, not just not that their opinion isn't important, of course, but for a member who does or an individual who does not say they're part of a militia, they're not a hunter, they don't care what happens to other people's rights as long as it doesn't affect them. That's not who I'm speaking for, and unfortunately, that's the larger part of the population. I'm speaking on as a militia member who is I don't want to say named, but the Second Amendment does have that word militia in there. Uh, that's often forgotten. We are not the 3% we used to be. I completely understand that we're nowhere near the numbers that were originally uh, talked about in the 3% logo there. We're a smaller group, but our rights are just as important as anybody else's. And just because you don't choose to use a right doesn't mean that I have to follow your standard or moral conduct there. So gun control laws affect us because we don't use everyday firearms like everybody else. They can and they do for hunting, uh, but we do things a little um, outside the regular realm of what people consider uh, everyday things like hunting or self defense. So the gun laws affect us quite a bit when we train and we try to use the materials that are readily available to us.
So are there any gun control laws that you would support or do support that are currently there? Or from your standpoint as a militia member, are they all uh, draconian and unconstitutional?
Let's see. I think I've heard the stats: 40,000 to 50,000 different gun laws are out there. Uh, I'm sure some of them have to do with uh, manufacturing and quality, and you don't want to buy a lemon, especially when it comes to a firearm. But a lot of them, yes, uh, from a base standpoint, we don't need any of them really. They are just insufferable, illogical most of the times. Uh, they don't do anything. Uh, if if a politician says, "Well, if it saves one life," I hear that all the time, and I think, well, yeah, if it saves one life, that's great. But if we do it our way, the constitutional way will save more lives than you will. If you save one life, we're going to save hundreds of thousands in defensive gun uses each year. We're it's hard to say, but you can't give me a gun law that I can't say, well, that's just useless. It doesn't make sense. It's not. It doesn't. It doesn't have any oomph. There's nothing behind it. It just gets in the way of something.
Now, a lot of people argue. You brought up the if it saved one life bit, and believe me, I completely share your sentiments on that. But a lot of people will say that, well, why do what's the need for it? So you're not law enforcement. You're a militia. You're there to help your community and help out governmental entities, as we've talked about here. Why would you, as a militia, need something like a select fire M4 with an M203 attachment?
Okay, easy. I don't understand this word need. What do you mean need? Uh, there's nothing in the Constitution about need. I don't need to exercise my First Amendment rights right now, but I am. I don't need to send out information or pamphlets off my printing press, but I can. I can say whatever I want. I don't understand what you mean by need.
It really made me laugh because you're absolutely right. It's not about needs. It's not the Bill of Needs. It's the Bill of Rights. And but a lot of
Now
people.
let me. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but I want to keep on this train of thought that I'm on right now. When you say need, uh, the first thing is you don't need a 30 round magazine for hunting. And I'm like, well, you probably don't, unless you're a really bad shot. But these these things that they say you don't need, um, honestly, some of these items, and we'll go along and I don't know what this word means either. Assault weapon. Um, these what do you call them? Items. Each item has a barrel shroud, a forward grip, a pistol grip, a detachable large capacity magazine. Um, uh, if I want to be honest, they just make it easier for us. It's more convenient. It's
But doesn't
if
it
you're
also? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
mhm.
doesn't it also make it easier for somebody to carry out evil acts?
Does it do inanimate objects make it easier for a person to carry out evil acts?
Basically, the talking point that an anti-gunner would say here is,
Mhm.
uh, if somebody is using a 3 round magazine versus a 30 round magazine, it makes it that much harder for that person to carry out an evil, atrocious act on such a large level.
Interesting. Well, I guess that would depend on what the victim is using. Are they using a 3 round magazine, or are they using a larger capacity magazine? And how many victims are there that are firing back? So if you have one guy with a 30 round magazine and you've got 10 victims with 30 round magazines, I think the math kind of works itself out there.
So you just think that everybody should be carrying guns, and we should have shootouts and riots in the streets because of bloodbaths, and basically that's what you're saying, right?
Oh my gosh, you caught us. Yes, that's it. No, no, that's not it. Um, we want a deterrent. If you take away the temptation or the opportunity for evil to happen, then most likely it's not going to happen. If well, this is a self-defense thing as opposed to a gun control militia thing, I think.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm trying to tread carefully. No, we don't want everybody to own guns, because if everybody owns guns, then they're going to have cooler guns than we do. That's not cool. We we would like every able-bodied American citizen uh, able to purchase a firearm to at least know how to use that firearm. Um, it's not too hard to learn how to use your First Amendment rights, especially with today's society and media. And heaven knows there's some people that use their rights more than they really should. But if you don't have to be a gun owner, you don't have to um, defend yourself, but at least know how. And usually, once you find out how and why it works, most people are more inclined to do that. Um, so that's from the self-defense point of view. From the gun rights point of view, as a militia member, I don't care what you own. If you're put in a position where you need to defend yourself, then that's you. If did you take the measures or did you not? And it doesn't have to be firearms. It's what you do. Now, if you need help and I am able to assist, uh, then I will. Then that's a personal decision on my part. But if I'm going to help you, I'm going to have the best tools available to do that job.
It sounds like what you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like what you're saying is that these evil military assault rifle ghost guns with a 30 round clip magazine that fires 4,000 bullets a second can also be used for good. Is that what you're saying?
Okay. First off, I still don't know what those words mean. In the firearms industry, and all of those people that participate in shooting, we don't use those words. We don't. It doesn't comprehend. It doesn't compute. We don't. It doesn't. It means nothing. We don't understand the definition. All we know is that hey, just because I have a muzzle brake on the end of my rifle, you're making a classification. It doesn't do anything to increase the lethality of this firearm.
You know
But
what's funny? I'm sorry to interrupt, but a lot of the things that, a pistol grip, a collapsible stock, a vertical grip on your forend, and optics and great sights and flashlights, all of those things, and I don't know why many people don't really say this, but all of those things help make your weapon more accurate. And you would think that we would want accuracy in a situation where we are trying to save people's lives from somebody who's trying to inflict harm.
yes, that's an excellent point. To bring up an example of that, a pistol, if you put a stock on it, it becomes a short-barreled rifle, which requires a $200 tax stamp, 8 to a year's worth of paperwork filing and waiting, and the sneering of all the government officials involved in that process. Uh, but yes, it makes it more accurate. It makes it more convenient. It makes it easier to use in a particular situation. And I don't understand why more accuracy would affect that. Here's a good analogy to explain all these accessories on a firearm. Uh, what kind of car do you drive there, Derek?
I drive a Toyota Corolla.
Toyota Corolla, excellent example. Now, if we painted your Toyota Corolla with sponsor stickers, a high-speed racing stripe, uh, and we put a hood scoop on there, and we put a tail spoiler on the end, and we whatever could be chromed was chromed out, and we put new tires on there. Well, maybe that might help, but if we put all these accessories on your Toyota Corolla, when it's said and done, your Toyota Corolla still goes from 0 to 60 in X amount of time. You still have 4 seats, or whatever the case may be. Your performance, it may not have actually even increased. It may have depleted because of all this extra stuff you're carrying around.
Well, I don't
It's
know. The
it,
spoiler might help with the downforce of my rear tires for my front wheel drive car.
but if you don't have it properly aligned, it'll cause drag and affect your mileage. So
Right.
if you don't do it right, uh, still these accessories, it's such a minimal increase. It's not going to do anything to your vehicle. And that's the same thing with some of these accessories. A pistol grip makes it easier to hold. All right. A high capacity magazine makes cuts down your reload time. It's a time saver. A forward grip helps you increases your accuracy. A barrel shroud keeps you from burning yourself on the barrel. Uh, what else do we have?
What about those
Oh,
evil?
a telescoping butt stock just helps with the individual's size. And not everybody's made the same. And the telescoping buttstock just helps you, again, make it more comfortable and fire easier.
What
You're
about
still
the?
shooting.
I'm sorry. What about the super secret squirrel assassin silencers?
Well, that protects your hearing.
Yeah, but you
In
can.
some countries, it's actually considered rude if you don't use a silencer.
But
Silencers suffer from the same stigma that the word militia does. It's an aid to help you uh, fire better and safety. It doesn't make the bullet go any faster. It doesn't make it slow down some. I think it may affect your cyclet rate depending on what kind of firearm you're using. But it just lowers the decibel level to a less damaging level.
but you
You're
can
not,
assassinate people and the police can't find you. That's what those do, right?
well, I would think that would be depending on how good an assassin you are. The silencer, as I understand it, if you, and I'm sure somebody can Google these facts, how many killings, period, how many killings have been done with a suppressor, I would be remiss to think that that number is fairly small.
But that's only because of the National Firearms Act. See, gun control's working here. That's what that is.
If you say so. The
Of
National
course,
Firearms Act was written in when?
1934.
And it hasn't expired yet?
No, it had no sunset.
Oh, gosh, we really need to do something about that.
Not to
But
mention that the $200 tax was $200 in 1934 as well, so it was about $3,000.
yeah,
The equivalent.
so it was a prohibitive cost.
Yeah. Thank God for the Federal Reserve devaluation of our currency, right?
Mm-hmm. Inflation, what a helping hand there.
Of course, I'm saying all of this tongue in cheek. I think that you know that I am incredibly pro Second Amendment, purist level pro Second Amendment. And I think that I just think that some of these arguments are so humorous. I don't understand how they resonate with anybody, but I guess to each their own.
Yes, but here's the thing. The people it does resonate with are people who don't understand.
Right.
And the people who don't understand, to prove their point, end up proving our point sometimes. There was just recently that congresswoman that wanted to prove that she did not need an assault weapon. Still don't know what that is. So she cut the barrel end of her husband's assault. I still don't know what that is. Rifle. And in doing so, I believe she committed a felony. She turned it into an SBR.
I actually emailed the ATF about that. I don't know if you saw it. I posted it up to our Facebook page, but I actually emailed the ATF about it, asking what their official stance was regarding that.
I remember that.
Yeah. And it was just a couple hours later that the news broke that apparently I wasn't the only one with that idea, because the ATF is investigating her, which I find to be humorous. But a gun control nut is being investigated for federal firearms felonies. It's almost like that lawmaker in California who was trafficking illegal arms.
Yen.
Yes, something like that.
Yeah. I remember that story. I also don't remember the specific name, but yeah, it's that goes into rule laws for you, not for me. And again, it's ignorance on their part. They don't know the laws. They're trying to prove something, and we're pointing out. I see how idiotic it is. You're under the same laws that we are, and by cutting the barrel off of your rifle, you're committing a felony. And a lot of these rules aren't common knowledge. Just recently, I had an individual who came up and said, "Hey, I'm interested in buying my first gun. I'm out of the military. I want to put together my AR, not from the ground up, but just, I want to buy the upper and the lower. I want to put them together. And so I got this lower. And what do you think about this 10-inch upper?" I'm like, "Okay, well, first off, you got to file with the ATF, 8 months, wait, get approval from your local law enforcement, which is the sheriff, $200 tax stamp, all that before you buy it. So don't buy it before, because then it's constructive intent. And just explain all this, and just his eyes just opened up wide. What? It's like, yeah, just stick with a 16-inch barrel.
Yeah.
And that's because I just happen to have some personal knowledge in the subject. Not These rules are so convoluted. They don't make sense.
They really, really don't. And I love having conversations with like-minded individuals like you, but I also love having conversations with people who are polar opposite, because a lot of them, they and this isn't to be insulting, but a lot of them, they sign off on these arguments because they haven't really delved any deeper than the surface. They're like, "Oh, it sounds good," and they don't go any deeper than that. So that's why they have that opinion. And whenever you start talking to them about the problems that there are with it, like the fact that you can take an AR lower, take off the telescoping stock and buffer tube, put on a forearm support that SIG makes, it's now considered a pistol and not an SBR. The fact that you can do that, it blows people's minds. And just like you said, putting a stock on a pistol makes it an SBR.
Well, wait, I thought you couldn't take a rifle and turn it into a pistol. That's illegal. You can take a pistol and turn it into a carbine, but you can't take a rifle and turn it into a pistol.
Is that true?
That is true.
They get so confusing at times.
See, even those who know don't know. And let me point out, they don't make sense. It's not going to do anything to the lethality. A lot of people say, well, then it's easier to conceal, which, depending on the size of the firearm, some things are a lot easier to conceal than others. But that's still an individual taking the mindset to do something bad, and you as a citizen being responsible enough to know that someone can take anything and do something bad. So what precautions did you take? It's not that the bad guy is doing something. It's what is the average citizen doing. And that's what we as militia members want to be prepared for, anything. The CDC a while ago came out with the saying, everybody thought it was funny, but it makes sense. If you're prepared for the zombie apocalypse, you're prepared for anything.
Right.
Now, knowing the zombie apocalypse won't happen.
It might. I saw The Walking Dead.
Yeah, we're hoping for that, but it's something along those lines can happen. So how did you prepare for that? Do you just wait for somebody else to take care of you? Or is evil going to rear its ugly head somehow, some way? Don't worry about what he did to become evil, because he's done it. He's going to do it regardless of what the laws are. What are you going to do? And how do those laws affect you from doing what you can to keep yourself protected effectively?
Mm-hmm. I'm during my conversation last week, I brought up how there are 650,000 sworn police officers in the U.S. Mm-hmm. And there are 325 million people in this country. And the very fact that whenever something is happening and we don't have the tools to defend ourselves adequately, we call them who bring the tools to defend us adequately, is the very reason that you said you don't know what need is. There is your need right there. The fact that the police and law enforcement have the ability to access these weapons in order to defend the public, which, by the way, the courts have ruled that they have no legal duty to do, but that's beside the point. The very fact that they bring the same tools that I'm not allowed to have in order to defend me with, it just takes them 7 to 12 minutes to get it, is perfect reason why I have a need for those same weapons.
Yes, but that is also a created need. The government created that need that may or may not be able to be fulfilled by you.
Right.
So that's why I say these gun laws, they don't make sense. We don't need them. Again, I'm sure there's one or two that are good, but purely from a don't want to buy a lemon perspective. But they're not productive. I don't know how many times I'm going to say this on the show. They don't do anything.
They don't do anything.
They don't do anything.
At least if they do,
hinder you.
Right. If they do something, like I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but if they do
Mm.
something, it's such a negligible amount that you can't even measure it,
Right,
and that right there means that uh, it's not a good policy, it's not a good law because
right.
it affects 100% of Americans.
If
But
we apply these laws to other things, like let's say fire, if you could only have a 2 ounce fire extinguisher in your house because a high capacity fire extinguisher is illegal and we can't trust you with it, and you can only have one fire extinguisher in your house at any one time, and when that one expires, you have to wait 8 weeks to buy a new fire extinguisher. These are the erroneous rules that are applied onto us, and we don't appreciate it. We don't need it. We who understand the nature of firearms don't understand how these help us at all, or anyone else. Um, it's just a roadblock in the way to our freedom. We, as a militia member, trying to argue these things with other people, it's very hard. Eventually, we learn, and we're like, okay, you just need to stop talking to these people and just secure your freedom. Um, I don't know how else to say it. The gun laws that are currently in place don't need to be there.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that you knew that already, but
Hmm.
just in case you didn't, I just want you to know that I could not agree more. If somebody was interested in researching militias and possibly joining one, and I don't want you to say the militia that you're a part of since you're not speaking for them, if you don't want to, but how would somebody first go about doing that? And how do they know the actual militias from, say, the clan run militias?
Okay, that is interesting. You do have to do your research because I'm not going to lie, there are some radical militias out there, and of course, they're the ones that get the most press. Most of the time, uh, due to a cherry picking media, if a good militia does try and represent themselves, we've seen it happen time and time again. Their words are edited and filtered in such a way that it's another set of crazies. Uh, um, I again, the reason I'm not speaking with you as a representative of my militia, but as a militia member individually, is because if anything falls back, it's on me. It's not on our militia. Um, that being said, there are still good militias out there. The predominant amount of militias are good. Are We have in our FTXs, you can bring your kids to our FTX, and they'll be safe. They'll be um, taken care of. Everybody is a family member. We're looking out for them. Uh, I don't know too many other training areas where you can bring your kids uh,
And
with that many firearms around. Um,
for those who don't know, what is an FTX?
I apologize. That's a field training exercise. It's just a blanket term for going out in the woods and training.
Okay. So
Uh,
if somebody was researching, what would be some things that they would look for to know that this one's probably a good one to at least inquire about?
okay. Um, Facebook has a lot of militias. Um, the one drawback about being a militia is that uh, they they think that they're the only ones in the area because they're the only ones that have heard of themselves. So there you do run into a little isolationism when it comes to militias. So there's going to be a militia out there. You just may not know about it. You do have to do the searching. Sometimes it's word of mouth. Other times they will have a web page or they won't, but they'll have some form of communication. Once you get in touch with them, um, go to a meeting or two, see how it is. They're vetting you just like you're vetting them. Um, when I joined the militia that I'm currently a part of, went to a couple of meetings. After that, you realize, okay, these are good guys. Okay, there's that one guy in the corner that believes in chemtrails, but he's not a representative of the whole group. But they're people just like me. You realize, sure, they have their opinions about certain politics, but if something happens, you see them go out to help their fellow members. Um,
And that's the
So you
important part.
realize, yeah, you realize that they're a group of of individuals. I know that sounds kind of contrary, but they're a group of individuals that are like-minded, that have a family mindset. Um, so you'll see that in the militia you attempt to join, or are curious about. And then after that, you just find out what it takes to become a part of that member. One of the things that a militia does, I think this is universal, is patching in. Uh, each militia has a different set of requirements for becoming a member. Uh, Attending so many FTXs, being able to recite the Pledge of Allegiance backwards. There's all kinds of little things you need to do. But once you accept them and they accept you, then there's a patch-in ceremony where they actually give you the patch of the militia, and then you're part of the family. So do some research, look around, find out who's out there, check them out. If you don't like it, no harm, no foul. Move along. If they're your kind of their cup of tea, then hey, it's a future, hopefully a positive role in you towards your future.
Well, awesome. Tim, I really appreciate you kind of coming on the program, shedding some light on what the militias actually do in this country, the real militias, and talking a little bit about gun control and how that affects you. And I really appreciate your time today, man. I really do.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving us an opportunity to get the word out,
Hey,
unedited.
yeah, hey, no problem. There will be a couple of edits, but that's to get rid of some background noise. But that's about it.
Sure.
Is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap up?
Um, the militia is a positive force in the community. Our militia actually has a street cleanup that we participate in. We partnered with Keep San Antonio Beautiful, uh, and we have a certain stretch of land that has our name on it that we patrol and pick up. It's frequented by a lot of truckers, so it's some really horrible stuff we got to pick up. But we do that. Um, we teamed up with the local animal shelter to provide awareness and, whenever we can, financial aid or help with landscaping. Uh, no charge, no reason other than just to be a good citizen. Um, we had a program a while ago. We need to restart it, but it's on our minds, of visiting vets at the Audie L. Murphy Memorial Hospital. These people just want someone to talk to, and we're there to fill that very important need for them. Uh, and we do this all in the name of the militia that we're a part of, not because we have to, but because we want to. And again, we are fighting that stigma of the word militia. But this is something any other group would do also. I mean, uh, it could have been a Boy Scout group that did this, and we're the same as the Boy Scouts. Just, we have more guns.
Well, thank you very much for this, for what you do with your community, and thank you for what you do for the state of Texas as well. I know I was living in Houston during Harvey. Thank God my house wasn't flooded out and I wasn't affected by it, but I did see a lot of what was going on there, and so I really appreciate what some of your members were able to do down there to help out.
Hmm.
And that whole thing is just, it really is. It's the type of things that never get reported, and you don't do it to get reported. You do it because you love where you live, you love your community, and you love your neighbors, and that's
Hmm.
what it boils down to. And so I really, really appreciate everything that you and your militia has done, and I appreciate you coming on the show and sharing a little bit about it.
Again, we appreciate your time also, and we hope to just get the word out.
Hey, my pleasure, my friend. I will talk to you next time.
Thank you very much. You have a good day.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I certainly hope you enjoyed this episode. Please subscribe and share if you're not already. Next week, I believe we are going to have somebody on from Texas Gun Sense to talk about gun control. They have replied and said that they are interested, but we have not yet solidified a time and day. But hopefully that will come next week. And if not, then we'll still have a show, I promise. There's always plenty to talk about, especially right now with gun control being such a hot topic. And you also have this social worker in Roanoke who was fired from her job for simply having a carry permit. And so there's so much going on. Don't worry, we will have a show. Anyway, that's going to do it for me for this week. Tune in next week and make sure you're subscribed to get alerted. And until next Sunday, Lone Star Gunners, arm yourself with knowledge and share the ammo.